And then ultimately, you have this new narrative out about Trump, where they're saying that Iran is there's a hit list. It's not just Trump now; it's Trump's people. There's a hit list in the Trump administration of Trump people in Trump's orbit that Iran wants to assassinate. And I think all that's bullshit. By the way, Trump for many months now has said ever since I became a candidate, like an official candidate for president, they are offering me, the intelligence community is offering me intelligence briefings, and I've denied every single one. I don't want your intelligence briefings because you're going to feed me a bunch of bullshit. And I think they're trying to foment a war between Trump and Iran. They want Trump to have animosity towards Iran. They want him to think that Iran's trying to kill him. I think he's too smart for that, obviously. But they're like, maybe we can still get our war with Iran even if Trump gets into office. I think that's what they want.
Yeah, I think so too. I think I'm very happy that you just said that he was denying, he was rejecting their offers for intelligence briefings. That's
not
smart.
Not one. Yep.
Good. Frankly,
yeah.
No, I tend to agree with you on that as well. I think that they're desperate to do a little sleight of hand and try to reframe all of the evidence for infiltration of foreign agents into America away from the actual black nobility and Satanists that have actually infiltrated and killed all of the American presidents that ever stood up and fought against this thing. They're trying to deflect that and say, oh yeah, all of that stuff you can account for by assuming it's all being driven by Iran. Or inversely, you got what's his name? Christopher Steele, who just came out. Actually, I got a little clip here of Steele, and then I know we got to round it out. So we'll just play this little Steele thing quickly.
Mm-hmm. I think we're yet to see.
Just say this is Steele giving an interview to a British press about his understanding. He is obviously the Russian expert who's behind a lot of American intelligence about how Putin took control of America through the figure of Trump. But he's giving this interview, which is quite something.
I think we're yet to see perhaps it all play out in the last few weeks before the election. The Russians are also concerned that Kamala Harris will win.
Obviously, very, very close election in America. What are your sources telling you about how Russia might be intervening already or might be planning to intervene?
The one thing that Russia has identified as a key issue in the American election is inflation. And this is something that the Russians think that they can keep up, that they can exacerbate in the West and particularly in America through the oil price. And they've spent the last few years growing closer to OPEC and OPEC leaders to limit production and keep inflation high in the world economy.
And they're also, in your belief, your sources are telling you in your book, that they're in some way trying to manipulate migration at the southern border to the US. Just explain what you found out there.
The Russian intelligence presence in Mexico has absolutely mushroomed. There are many, many more agents operating out of Mexico City now than ever were. And looking at the border, particularly some of the things that were said, I think, by the head of MI5 recently, that the Russians are now in the business of hiring organised criminals and others as plausible deniability, and that somehow they will manipulate gangs and so on to stir up more immigration into the southern part of the US. Yes, I think we're yet to see.
I just had to play that because this is the guy who is directly working for Sir Richard Dearlove, the head of MI6, the guy who created the phony dossier that got us into the bombing campaign against Saddam Hussein in Iraq. It was all based on lies, fake intelligence. That's the guy who's directly under Dearlove, who created the Russiagate dossier, working with the Rhodes Scholars, Strobe Talbot, other things.
Literally called the Steele dossier. It's literally called the Steele dossier.
It's based on his name. All made up. Trump being peed on by prostitutes, all this stuff. This guy was always on the payroll, both of the DNC, but also directed by MI5, MI6, both, as far as I could see it. And he was the former, in the 90s, he was the head of MI6's Russian bureau in Moscow. So this guy is like tied into Bill Browder, you name it. And he's coming out saying the same thing, which ironically is literally, you could remove the word Russia and insert China and then listen to Brett Weinstein's presentations on Tucker Carlson.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere he's got a chance to talk about China weaponizing immigration to destroy America, Brett Weinstein was deployed to do that. And it's the same speech, except Brett he's got the trust of the people who don't believe in the Great Reset and who don't like, fascist World Economic Forum freaks. So he's got a different assignment to just set the language, the tone, to accommodate the conservative mindset. And in both cases, it's the same lines exactly. And in both cases, in the case of Brett especially, he's avoiding the fact, my wife Cynthia, she just produced an incredible paper on this. He's avoiding the fact that the Kalergi plan for weaponized immigration, what is it called? The Great Replacement.
Mhm.
So the Great Replacement was actually, the architect of it for the UN was Eric Weinstein. He was the guy personally assigned and commissioned, paid money by the UN to generate the model for the Great Replacement program. And my wife, Cynthia Chung, on her website has a deep dive on Eric Weinstein's role with the UN. He had his own business, his own account around his idea of how to open up borders to lower prices for businesses to pay for immigrants instead of citizens. So the two key figures behind the dark web, or the dark intellectual web, whatever you want to call it, you got Jordan Peterson, you got a few others, are directly tied into the Kalergi plan to undermine nations, and both of them are directly tied to what's known as maybe we'll talk about this in an upcoming show. There's a Luciferian program called Game B that came out of the Esalen Institute to create a response to the controlled breakdown of unbounded neoliberalism that would occur with globalization forecastably. And they wanted to control earlier on the response against the breakdown of the system. And it's called Game B. And Courtney Turner did a deep dive
controlled
on
opposition dynamic. Controlled
Totally,
opposition.
yeah. And these guys
control both sides.
Yeah.
And get people to pick a side. Yeah. And these clowns, by the way, they'll talk about Russia, they'll talk about China, they'll talk about every other place. They'll never talk about AIPAC. They'll never talk about the obvious influence that Israel has over our Congress and over our government. And that's why they have no credibility. That's why I think they're all clowns. If you're not willing to talk about that, like while you're talking about maybe other countries having influence, because I realize that our politicians are all prostitutes and they literally will do anything for anybody for money. If you're not willing to talk about Israel controlling our government, then you are a clown, and I can't take you seriously as an analyst. So
yeah, exactly.
I do have to jump. Do we have
All
any? I missed the beginning. Do we have any ad reads?
I've got one My Pillow ad, and then we can round it out. How's that?
I'm gonna jump. I gotta jump off to go put my kids down for naps. But
all right, see you, Gordon. And for everybody listening, after this ad, I'm gonna say something interesting. I'm gonna show a little video, so stay on for the ad, okay? People, don't run off now. Now's not the time. All right, Gordon. Till next week, man. Thank you.
See ya.